part 2 of this, getting that section over there finished. The rainy, wet, nasty, not really cold day out. I got a lot of my pieces made. If you saw part 1, you'll see that I had a lot of this made up. And now we're going to start fitting it up and making sure we do it right. Here's our rocker panel that'll eventually go over the whole thing. And then the quarter panel or bottom of the fan on the side. We'll get all that together hopefully. So stay tuned. Now if you saw it, we was cutting all this out. We kept going, we kept going, and we kept going. This is pretty much the limit right here. First piece that we're going to start with will be this one here. We will trim the part that is painted white, where it says in and up. Over here on the left side, about where my thumb is. Trim that back a little bit, and it should fit right in there. We do have to drill a couple holes. Maybe 2 holes here, and that'll establish some spot weld locations for a little ridge. Once we get that in, we're going to smooth this out first too, also both sides. Clean it up. When we get that in, we'll have a good basis foundation to go off of, and we'll start building the rest of it back. So I went ahead and took our flappy wheel. Clean this up really good. It was 2 pieces. I started with this one, and then as we started cutting away and moving around some stuff, this part really needed to be replaced also. So I went ahead and made that. I'm just going to trim this little edge up like I said, and it should be ready to go in. Oh yeah, better do this side just for the fact of the matter, you know, just clean it up, give it less reason to give you trouble later, even though you'll never see it again. Alright, we're cleaned up here, both sides. Got our spot weld holes drilled out. 2 of them there, 2 of them here. Trim this down a little bit so it'll fit in here nice and snug. So that would be the first one that would probably go in. But if you're doing this or anything remotely like it, you have to not just go gung-ho and just, well, I'm going to weld that in. Alright? Because you may do that and then say this is the next piece that I would naturally think that would go in. And this is right side up here. Now if that was in there snug, I wouldn't be able to get it in. You wouldn't be able to go in from underneath. I don't think. We could try it. I'm taking this steppage and it won't let me do it. So if I try to go in from underneath, no, because then it hits the piece here again. So it's like a unit, alright? It'll kind of go in there like that. So this one might be the first one to go in. Just always think 360 around this stuff. Because look, if you do it that way, it's really nice. Now we want it to fit good to where this isn't down, it's up. I don't really go up any further than that, so that's good. And you don't want this one too far back. Sometimes that doesn't matter, but in some cases it does. It depends. If you're building a race car, it would. Any little micro measurement is going to throw it off and everything's going to be off. We're just making a new puzzle piece. So probably what I'll do, I've got a couple holes drilled for the spot welds here as well. I can access that one really easily from here when it's in there, so you'll see that one. This one will be a little harder, but before I put all this back together, I'll try to stick the nozzle up there and get that one in place. Alright, so I have decided for sure. I did my 360 thinking on it. Another thing I missed was I need to put these 2 spot weld holes in there, which will attach it to there. I shaved this off a little bit so it'll fit up good. And that's where it'll go. Alright, so I don't have to necessarily tack it up here yet because I have these holes. I can just use that to my advantage. my mask and we'll get the rest of that tacked up. All right, so right here, you're sitting right on top of the wheel well, right over the top of the driver's front wheel. So you can see this a little better. Here's where I just tacked it. We're gonna try to get the other piece in right here. Now it looks like it'll be a pretty good fit. It's very flush here and also here in the back. And we have the same gap here from where this panel laps on top, so it looks the same there. And it seems to fit up against this really nice. And we can get the flange spot welds from underneath really easy right now with no rocker panel on here. Make sure it's good here, up there. I like that. Tack it out here just so we'll get our alignment right. It's pretty good. Alright, we got a pretty solid situation here. Went ahead and tacked all this, or I should say stitch it all back together there. Stitch it up here. Do have to take the grinder and smooth all that down, especially here, because our next piece that'll go on is the curve that you might be familiar with on all these door jamb areas. That'll fit right up against where that bump out is anyways. Plus we just want it to look good, right? So that'll fit up there about like that. And then when we get some heat on it, we can knock this end down because it has a little bit of a shape that I couldn't quite acquire naturally. So we're going to let the heat take care of some of that, push that down, and we'll have some holes in here so we can do some spot welds. Same thing up here. Is we've got this piece here. This will be a continuation of all this, where it wraps around about there. This piece here will need some massaging too. It needs a little bit of an angle on it, but it'll roughly go about right here. And we got this piece here, which will continue where this is. It'll give kind of an edge here. Okay, so got a little ways to go, but really this foundational part is the biggest section of it. Okay, hopefully you can hear me all right. It's raining out on the metal roof on the back part of the shop. So I've got this piece pretty much ready to go. There's a lot of spot weld holes here drilled. I got 4 here, 3 here, 3 here. So this tells you a lot's going on in just this area. It's like a reinforcement to this little intersection of structure. Now I got a line that's drawn here. This is where I had, this is where the piece originally came down and capped over it. And they just made this piece that was set on the inside kind of consistent with that, so it didn't look all out of place. So that's where like this would be right here. So that was a little marker there. So I knew it shouldn't slouch down like this or be kind of midway. It kind of sets up about like that. Right about there. These make contact first. This one is a little out, so I'm not going to worry about this one yet. Basically what I want to do is anchor it down. Now when I weld spot welds with just a little MIG welder, your whole situation is you want to fill that hole up to where it's nice and flush, or a little bit higher, that way you can grind it smooth. But you want to make sure at the same time that you're grabbing this piece with it. So I'll show you right here what I did. I know it's a little tough to see, but notice how it's kind of in the center of the hole right there. And then it's like I took, almost like taking a marker and just kind of marking it across, slashing across it. That way it grabs this part and it grabs this part here. It's usually your best bet to just get a good tack on it and burn it in there real good. Just hold it for a second solid and then pull away. That way it doesn't blow it out at the same time. So you could do at least the first one this way to where it holds everything in place, and then you can start filling the other ones. I usually just go like a little swirl, and I start in the center and just work my way out and kind of grab the perimeter of the metal on top and just work it in there that way. I just hold it like that, and that way it just kind of encompasses all the steel and doesn't leave a big weak spot by just having a little tiny tack, and then it's just filled over. That way it pulls it all together and you'll have a good weld. Now the way it's working, I got enough heat here where it's allowing me to push it in there really easy. So what I'm going to do is see if I can get this part back there like that and push it back this way and that way. Just enough holding it. It's a little bit of a space behind there due to that curve coming down, but I do have enough to hold on to it. So I need to get moving on it and get more tack in here. Ah! Wire. So this is what drives me nuts about this particular welder. It's a really good welder, except for this little problem I have. If he gets a little bit of resistance, it's going into something, let's say it's not getting a good ground, and just pushing that wire into the material, it'll back it up into here and cause your spool to just eat right up into the feeder. So you kind of see what's going on there. This setting here, I use it on a heavier setting, I've used it on a lighter setting, and either way I really get the same result if it hits against something. Alright, we got some really good spot welds on this one. Pretty solid. You saw me hammering all this up. When it gets hot, it just turns into butter. You just pop it right up against there. This one was a little more stubborn, but it went. And even up here, I got a little bit as well. And even on the bottom. So it's got a pretty good shape to it. And we're within our perimeter here, where this comes down, and this should butt up against that when we get in place. I don't want to touch it. Still pretty hot. Alright, so we've had a little break in the video. This is 2 days later from what you've been watching. And we got nice weather. We got the door open right now. So I figured why not get in here and get something done. Alright, so while the neighbor runs his leaf blower, I've got it tacked in here. Looks a little rough, but we got it in there. And then we got it tacked here, so where you saw me smacking on with a hammer, just getting the bend down on it a little bit. Alright, so I shaved this piece down. And mainly it was just in this curve right here, where it had a little too much here, and when you set it down in there, you had too much gap here, down here, so you just contour it to fit. And we got a pretty good look at it there. But I don't really want to put that all on there yet, because it'll cover this from me being able to get my welder on it. Even if you have to go up there, it's a little difficult, so you might as well be as easy as possible. This here, it's going to leave trouble when you have a mess on there. And the reason I'm talking about welding out there is because the rocker panel, our main objective here, will have to go and fit up against this right here. This is as if it was the original piece. This and that was all original, all one piece. So this will have to weld up on here first, all the way down through here, or at least here, and then we will take this piece and lap it down over that after we smooth the welds out. And this won't be final yet, because there is some boxing that needs to be done right here to achieve kind of the original engineering aspect of it. So it'll kind of be capped here and separate from that. Let me figure that out, and then I'll jump back on here and show you what we got going on. Alright, so now I got to come to this point where I deal with this intersection, and I don't have enough reference to what was here originally. I don't have another van to look at. I don't have any schematics. It doesn't show this type of thing in the service manual. It only shows the framework of the vehicle, but not the sheet metal assembly. What I'm gathering is, you could tell this piece here, it came down, and it probably was part of the cap. so to speak. So if this was up like that, now yes, we still have to deal with this. This might be too short. Not quite sure yet. What I will do is make this piece here drop down and then take this shape. So you could take, you know, this is a thicker, like a heavy sketch paper actually, but it's like a light poster board. And make a piece that extends down, has a slight curve here to accommodate this. We'll bend a little flange on this one. And then push this back where it's flush here. That way it gives us somewhat of an accurate read on it. So I rubbed that against that, and it gives you a little bit of a line. And if we have to put a flange anywhere in there, then it's not going to be a problem. We'll just add a piece of paper onto it. So it should fit something about like that. Give our bend here a little more sharpness, a little more of a 90 degree. So that would be good. I do want to extend it so it'll reach up in here. At least where I can get a tack wheel on it. Something like that. Alright, I have started to figure out some things with this rocker panel, with what we need to do as far as the partition behind this. And also, a cool thing is the way that this will fit up. Now again, I'll point out how this board back here, much like the green one you see in there, it's just a back structural piece for all this to mount up to. Looking at this, how this flange fits up against that, it cups around it like this. It just, as if these vice grips was that back board, this piece here is shaped like this if you're looking at it from the side, and it just fits up right over top of it like that. And then you would spot weld it on through. I was getting the same impression here, but it is a little different. The way that the board, and I'm calling it a board, this piece here follows through, it happens to fall right on, when you pull that up, right on the corner seam of the rocker. See that, make that contact there? Now I think that needs to be trimmed by like 1/8 of an inch, okay? But that is technically where that bend occurs. Now, that makes me think that this is fairly accurate back here, but why doesn't this fit up? Now it will once you get the bend on it. See, it fits up actually pretty good, but there's still a gap in behind there. And let me show you, as I was looking at the piece again, the piece I was looking at was the original piece. Now, it's the tetanus pile of control here. You see how I marked this? This was the lower side of the van. This is front, so that's the front of the van. Driver's side. I have an arrow pointing towards the rocker being here. Okay, so this is that area that we was looking at a minute ago, but it's just the old rotted out piece. Now a lot of this guy bent it off of there when I cut it. But if you look at it here, here is that backboard, or the board that I was talking about that I replaced. And if you take this and look at it the way it was bent, it would come up like a banana shape right here, and this would be the flat, this would be the up and down the lateral bit. Okay, now notice how this flange goes out, so it comes down. I have it to about here. I need to add a flange, so it is a bit of an oops on my part. Somehow that escaped me. So what I will have to do, and even if I have to knock this panel off to do it right, I will do it. Was when you look at it down here, it'll set up there pretty good once you get the tension on it, because it will have tension. These panels are flatter than they should be. The flange is here where my finger is rubbing back and forth. That's where it should be. Here's where the piece comes down. So once it sets up in there, if that makes any sense, what I'm trying to show you with only one hand, is that flange will sit down there. It's just built a little L-shaped flange. It comes down a little bit and then comes out. This will set up against it, and we will seal it to where it doesn't rust, or it shouldn't rust, at least for a long, long time, and we'll get that working. All right, so spent some time, had to do a couple different pieces and get my flanges, and that's why I got tape on there. And so this is what we're going to come up with. You just saw, it's kind of a multifaceted piece. It's a very strange looking piece, but that's probably, may not be what they had originally, but that's what we'll be able to work with here. And we might still have to make that other piece. Pretty sure we will, actually. So there's so much going on in this one. All these bends, it's going to be pretty strong when you get it together. So I'm not going to worry about using a 16 or 18 gauge piece. I'm using this, which was originally the top half of this new replacement panel. So I'll just stay away from this, and I'll stay away from the body line, which I might have to use. But I was able to scribe it to get a little tighter, accurate cut on it. Alright, so there's our template, and here's our piece. Like I said, you could take a smaller gauge piece of steel, and once you bend it this many times, it's pretty solid. There it goes like that. Now we got our flange in the back here, and this should kind of come up around that. Or underneath it, I should say. Sorry, where my thumb is. That's roughly how it will set. The rocker will set up against here. But it does look like I need to trim over here. Not very much though. So we're in a good spot there. Let's get that trimmed and fit it up. Let me show you this first. Here's our rocker panel, right? And this edge right here should set up right against this. So when you put it on there, it might fall out when I do this, but kind of set like up against there. Then you have some spot welds to go in here to mount it up to that. And here are those spot welds for the back panel there. Now that wasn't there originally, to my knowledge. At least there was nothing with spot welds here. It seemed like they all stopped right there. That's the piece I chiseled off there. But we're going to have to compromise here because there is an opening. This is open from the back. That'll always be accessible to a degree. So this will just fit in there and box this in so it keeps from having a bunch of crap accumulate, at least from this part of it. Like if you had your back wheels kick it up going in reverse, and we'll throw something up inside here and then get wet and rot out. Alright, we got the piece in there, pretty solid, and just, you know, clean it out really good, blow it out, and also we'll be able to get this stuff, maybe run my flappy wheel over that and smooth it down a little bit, and then we'll coat it, and then probably, I think what I'll do, I don't know what I did with it, but I'll put the rocker panel
up over here and just study it and make sure that it's where I want to be, that I don't need something else put in place before I go putting the belly portion back together.
Everything's nice and green now. We cleaned it all up, sanded everything out from the inside out up here, and shot it with our internal frame coating. And then we went ahead and sanded the back of the rocker panel off and put some acrylic paint on it. So it'll be a little bit stronger than this black. I know it don't look different, but it's this black EDP coating they put on everything. It's just very weak, flaky kind of stuff, so I don't want to use that if I can never access it again, like this will be the case. So what we're going to do, it's all ready to go as far as welding this on. So we're going to take a little bit of time and make sure this fits upright, and it does need that little bend, but I think what we can do would probably be to tack it up here strong enough to where it'll hold, but not enough to where we can't pop it back loose easily if we need to. If that makes any sense, because we want to be able to mate it to this surface here and then butt weld it up to this here. So we're going to drill a couple holes down through here and get some spot weld locations established. So if that'll go up in there good, this will overlap. So this part is meant to overlap on purpose. So there's a little recession right here for that will go in so that it'll be smooth. So we'll want to kind of force it into shape, but not distort it out of shape. Alright, so I grabbed the door, and this door's been off for like a month or more. And with that piece that I just shaved down in there on that curve, I don't want to get ahead of myself and I want to make sure that this door fit up here and not actually be restricted by this door jamb. Now, when I was comparing it last night to the piece I cut out, the curve was good. But you always want to take another little precaution because you never know. So, usually when you take the doors off, they're open, right? So, this hinge part here will be out and it'll be in the way. You won't be able to throw it up on there. So we need to at least put it to where it's in a closed type position. The top one's in that one, it just swivels around, right? So put that in there. This one's got the spring on it. And you don't want to put it on this part and knock it around because it's not going to go anywhere. And you want to be kind of easy and use the pin, the hinge pin. You don't want to bend it or anything, just enough to push it in. And then you go on the inside of it back here, and it'll push it the rest of the way. Turn this off. You can probably hear me a little better. So we can just kind of throw it up on there and even let it latch if we want to, just to get it flush. And of course, just to take it off, you're going to use the button on the door handle. Okay, now it's not going to be perfectly aligned. Keep that in mind. It's down up here in the front, towards the front of the van. It's kind of up there. So you find something to grab onto, like the door, the window crank. That helps. And you push it up into position here. And it is fitting pretty flush down there. Now the weight is pushing down a little bit, but it is fitting. So it tells me that our curve is not obstructing the door in there. There should be quite a bit of play anyways. You know, at least that much, just for door gap and for everything to be able to move around. But we want to just make sure we're not in the red zone and we're in the way. Knee up against it. Take it loose. Drop it back down. So, we've had to backtrack a little bit, and I talked about possibly having to do this, and that was taking that panel off of here, which I had tacked on there. Had it tacked on pretty good, but I was running into a few obstructions with it. When I was testing to see how far it would fit back, I noticed these were in the way, and I had made this part from about here down, and it was too abrupt. It didn't have any flow to it. So I trimmed it back to where it has the contour, kind of like that down there. And so we got the same thing here. Another thing was we talked about this partition, which kind of started this whole thing of going down here in order to come back here. So what I did was, since we got this up here now, I'll fit in there just like that. And is that factory? No. Is it something like it? Yeah. So we'll make it work. I gave it enough flange to where it'll support this here, and we can just weld it all together, weld it in there, and just tie it into this piece here where it was originally. And I think I still have to build a flange off the back of it for this bottom edge to fit up to. All right, so I trimmed up on that little board underneath there, okay? And I pretty much decided that it's time to do the little lip, the flange for that belly section, the side panel to fasten to. And if you remember, I cut off a little bit of the rocker panel because I didn't need all the way up onto the the running board. This would be that running board, and this is that park. Well, I looked at it, and this is about what I need. And what I'm going to do is this old quarter panel section that I didn't use on this passenger side. I needed, I was going to go ahead and use this. I like that. It's got a nice shape to it, sturdy. And so it was like 18 inches roughly. And I needed to make up the difference, so it's about 32 and a half. So I'm able to take it out of this one. And it's a nice long straight piece. It'll work pretty good. And I'll show you how well this seems to fit up against the quarter panel piece. So it's just past midnight. About ready to shut down. I'm trying to get all this brush burned up. I've been doing this for about 11 hours. I opened up the shop, came out here and started all this brush, and about what you see here. I had about 3 times that as far as the brush, and then actually more, to be honest. And I've slowly been burning it all day. I cut some of it down, but it's just so wiry, and so you've had to keep adjusting it all day long. But back to the job at hand. That piece, I went ahead and welded both ends together after I bent it, drilled some spot weld holes, and that wasn't as important really, but it was just to anchor it down. So here's what we got. You can see I just did some stitch welds all the way down through there, and I think that's gonna work. I went ahead and just put some coating on it, kind of flooded it on so it would get down inside them seams, because that's just something you don't want coming back and biting you later. The only thing I think I might have to have any adjustments on, if at all, would just be this thing. It's just kind of, I don't know, it seems like it's kind of in the way, because this thing has to have a wrap to it. It'll set here and then come out and roll up and then touch here and of course weld into that panel. And you kind of look at this as a gauge to how the curve should be. It just seems like when you kind of bend it, it'll want to hit this. Well, that'll pucker it if you're not careful. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of get that fire out there situated, and I'm going to go in for the night, and we'll try to fit this up probably tomorrow evening. All right, so we're on day 4,314 of this situation right here, and I feel all right about it. I feel okay about it. I went ahead and it's kind of funny how this stuff, I don't know if it's the weather or what. I went ahead and tacked this up just enough to hold it. So I got it here, here, here where the floor pan meets up, and just those 3 spots. So we're in a good place. Our body line fits up nice. And before, you noticed, if you look back in either this video or the part 1, that body line right here fits up really nice, but we have this monstrous gap right here. And I was talking about having to bridge it and all this stuff. Well, there will be a slight bit of bridging here, but up here it is like nice. And it's the weirdest thing. And this is how it looked when I originally cut it. And we got a little bit of a spot here, but I can deal with that. Big jump, big jump. It looks simple, but for some reason it's a toughie. Got most of this, probably 90% of it tacked in, and I'm just gonna go ahead and into all the part 2 right here. Everything's going pretty good. What I'll do is I'll continue this into the next phase. When I do finish up here, you'll see it then, and then I'll have to figure out what we want to do with this wheel arc. I'll get serious about that and see what we can do, but I just got to go ahead and complete the cycle through here. Pretty good. I think it's a good time to stop, really. And with this video, before we get too long with it, and you know, we did all this. We did a lot with this series here, this 2-part series. Got all that acid, washed all that off. Kind of figured this out, and this couldn't happen until we did that. Then we went through this whole section here, and now we're back over here. And honestly, this was the worst part to me. It was worse than anything to do there. That was just a lot of pieces. This is just, wow, it was a headache. So I'm glad to have the fitment part of it done and all that bit. So anyway, if you like what you've seen, you know the deal. Subscribe, hit the little, and you know, we'll update. I've been doing this about weekly, so we got constant updates. Make sure you tell your friends about us. Share it on social media. You know, we like to do this like all the time, so and you're going to see this thing from start to finish. If you watched from the beginning, there's only a few things that I didn't show, and then I got into the videos, and here we are. So y'all take it easy, and we'll see you on the other side.